Okay, let me put it maybe on the board. Okay, I hope you are able to see them.
Yeah.
Education of CWSNS, that's in short. It stands for Children with Special Needs, and its implications for universalization of elementary education. Now, I want us to look for the keywords, from this. Or I want us to paraphrase this, whether it's a sentence or it's not a sentence, but I want us to paraphrase this. Now, to maybe even the right way maybe to take it or to put it should be, I want us to cut it into pieces so that we should understand it better. But our main focus should go much on education of children with special needs. Education of children with special needs. We'll come to that one later, but first of all, we should understand the meaning of universalization of elementary education. That's before we should know a lot. We should firstly look at universalization of elementary education. And again, in that one, in that phrase, there is elementary education. There's also elementary education. In universalization of elementary education, there is elementary education. Let us first of all define elementary education. Elementary education. Do you have any knowledge about elementary education? Is it not from this class? Last time it wasn't from this class where I posed the very same question.
No, this is the first time.
So, elementary education. Elementary education is the first stage of formal education. It's the first stage. First stage of formal education. This one here in Malawi, we can consider it to be, or we can say it to be, primary education. Primary education, elementary. It comes after preschool. Do you know preschool? What is preschool? Kindergarten, right? Okay, nursery. So it comes after preschool or kindergarten. and before, it comes before secondary education. It comes before secondary education. It comes after preschool or kindergarten and before secondary education. In most cases, it begins from age 5 to 7, it depends, and ends at about age 13 to 11. But this was not the case previously. During our days, primary school, you find in primary school education, it's somebody who goes up to 18 years, even 20 years in primary school. It was tough. So that's about elementary education. I don't know if you have any question before we look at another definition. Okay. Having looked at elementary education, now we should look at free. The universalization of elementary education. Universalization, what does it mean? Sometimes I've been using just abbreviations, like EE, it stands for elementary education. And if to put it in short, universalization of elementary education, I'll use UEE, right? Okay. Now, UEE, what does it mean? This one refers to the enrollment, or retention, enrollment and retention, and if it goes further, to universal access to qualitative education for children up to the age of 14. Universalization of elementary education refers to enrollment, retention, the way the retention, that's keeping, retention, and universal access to qualitative education for children up to the age of 14. Children enroll. Maybe they enroll whilst they are at 5 or 6 or 7. They'll go through. The moment they start for the enrollment, they have been enrolled, they start learning. Such children are supposed to be retained or kept in the school. And they should also have all across access to qualitative education. The kind of education should be that of quality. Qualitative education for children up to the age of 14. That's when probably they're supposed to graduate from the elementary education and go to secondary education. Now, they're saying elementary education is a fundamental right. Elementary education is a fundamental right. Is a fundamental right. What is a fundamental right? Fundamental right simply means it's a right that has been recognized by a high degree of protection from encroachment. Protection from encroachment. What do they mean? Each and every right of a human being is supposed to be protected. And if somebody tries to encroach, which means that particular somebody has violated your right. So, education is a fundamental right. That is to say, if it's fundamental right, I've defined fundamental right. Fundamental right is a right that has been recognized by a high degree of protection from encroachment. Initial encroachment, what does that mean? But right? Right. Trespassing.
I had a degree of protection
From
protection.
each and every human rights are supposed to be protected. It's not allowed to encroach to somebody's rights. So elementary education is a fundamental right. Nobody is supposed to encroach in somebody's right to education. Even if it's a parent, the parent is not allowed to encroach in somebody's, or whether you're a child, they are not allowed to encroach. Now, to align this right to Malawian constitution, they are saying Malawian constitution, just like any other constitution from other nations or countries, emphasizes offering elementary education to all. Malawi as a country, the constitution is saying each and every child is supposed to do what? Is supposed to do what? To attain education. To attain education. And definitely, you can't go straight to secondary school or university. But first and foremost, you're supposed to go through the primary education. Whether you go to kindergarten or not, but primary education, you can't jump primary education. You cannot go through the corridors of kindergarten, but primary school you can't go without primary school. So the Malawian constitution, just like any other constitution, is emphasizing much, or it puts much emphasis on offering elementary education to all. Now, someone will ask a question to say, what is the importance of the universalization of elementary education? Why do you think universalization of elementary education is important? UEE is important simply because it increases national productivity. UEE, universalization of elementary education, is important because it increases national productivity. That is to say, or that is to mean, universalization of education leads to literacy of more citizens. It leads to the literacy of more citizens, which promotes the productivity of the nation. The nation wants its citizens to be educated in this term. So
It promotes what?
it promotes the productivity of the nation. Once the nation has learned people, or people who went to school, or who have gone to school. So universalization of elementary education is important because it increases national productivity. What else does UEE bring? UEE is important because it spreads mass literacy. It spreads mass, that's huge, huge literacy. So literacy is the basic criteria of economic development. Literacy. is the basic, is considered to be the basic criteria of economic development. If a country, and even you yourself personally, you're supposed to be literate if you want to develop economically. And so on and so forth. So UEE spreads mass literacy. Apart from that one, what again is the importance of UEE? UEE facilitates equality. Facilitates equality.
Equality?
Yes. Equality in the sense that through the universalization of education, the quality of citizens can be fostered. I'm saying it facilitates equality. And I say equality, what do I mean when I say it facilitates equality? I'm trying to say equality in the sense that through the universalization of education, the quality of all citizens can be fostered. Again, universalization of elementary education helps to increase competence. Competence. What do I mean when I'm saying it increases competence? The competence I'm trying to mean here, the competence of the average worker. Competence of the average worker is increased through the universalization of education. Again, UEE fosters national development. It promotes national development, fosters national development. So education is a must. Education is a must for a country to develop. A country is supposed to have educated people. So it fosters national development. And finally, universalization of elementary education helps to promote opportunity. It helps to promote opportunity. That is to say, more citizens can gain opportunities and develop efficiently. I don't know if there is any question on education of children with special needs and implications for universalization of elementary education, more especially on universalization of elementary education. If you have any question, before we continue, you can ask. If probably somebody somehow would not get me well, this is your time. You can ask for guidance.
Can you repeat the third point on UEE? That it facilitates equality.
Okay. Equality. Equality in the sense that through the universalization of education, you are making education to go to all. You are not leaving somebody behind. If you don't leave anybody behind, that is to say, you are equalizing. You are making it to be equal. So equality in the sense that through the universalization of education, the equality of all citizens can be seen or can be promoted. You're not leaving anybody behind. So, having known the meaning of universalization of elementary education, let us now go back to the heading, our heading here. The heading is saying education of children with special needs and its implications for universalization of elementary education. Let us go back to that definition or heading. I mean, not definition, but heading. So, what does this heading want us to understand? Or what does it tell us? What does it want us to understand? Or what does it tell us? Now, in a simple understanding, the heading is asking us to link the two phrases. Phrase number one is talking about education of children with special needs, where there's a sentence or phrase, but the first one is education of children with special needs. And the second one is universalization of elementary education. These two. So that is to say, education of children with special needs in compliance with universalization of elementary education. I'm substituting some words there. Here, more especially, I'm emphasizing more or much here. My emphasis is put here. Want to marry these two. Want to make them more understandable. Education of children with special needs and its implications for universalization of elementary education. The first word which probably I can use or I can fit in there is education of children with special needs in compliance with universalization of elementary education, or another word which I can put in there is education of children with special needs conforming to universalization of elementary education. That's two. Another substitute there could be education of children with special needs in congruence with universalization of elementary education. And the last one I could also use or fit in this one, education of children with special needs in harmony with universalization of elementary education. So I've put in some words to add more meaning to what we want to know or to look into. Universal Declaration of Human Rights makes universal universal free primary education compulsory. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was an agreement This was an agreement which several nations, when they met in 1948, these states were members of the United Nations. They met to agree upon one thing. You are looking at the human rights or fundamental rights of human beings, and one of them was the right to education. The right to education. And that one is found on Article 26. Article 26. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, Article 26, which is saying, or which is making this to all people, to all members who are present there. It makes universal free primary education compulsory. So primary school education must be free and compulsory to all, and is usually thought of as a right about children. It's taken or considered to be a right. It's a right to all children or to all people. However, even though the United Nations, in that particular meeting, member states agreed that this one should be, we are agreeing here, this one should be a right to be accessed by each and every human being. But that is not the case. That's not the case. In practice, that's not the case. Many groups of people do not access this right. True or false? Yes. Many people don't access this. Even though they sat down to agree that this one, we should put it as a right for everyone to access education. But in practice, it's not, it doesn't happen. Now, later on came the suggestions for special schools. After they realized that even though there is this right which says elementary education shall be compulsory, but in practice it's not. There are some quotas or other factors that impede this one to be recognized as a right. Now later on the suggestion, more especially those people with some challenges or disabilities, they're the ones who are suffering most. Now did they just sit idle without doing anything? So a suggestion came. A suggestion came. And this suggestion was to have special schools. A suggestion came, and this suggestion was the one to have special schools. Now, I want us to look at the special schools. So, as a solution, this was regarded as a solution. It was regarded as a solution. Children with disabilities wanted to go to school, but because of their nature, some people or in the environment were not able to access primary education. So as a solution to lack of access to education, almost all countries bent to special schools. All countries bent to special schools for different children, and usually for pupils with special disabilities, such as hearing impairment. What another impairment? Apart from hearing impairment, visual, learning difficulties, and multiple, right? Yeah. So such children wanted to be helped, and the solution was to go for special schools. So these special schools previously were provided for by voluntary organizations or institutions, and sometimes they were also offered by religious organizations or institutions, more especially in response to the needs in a particular locality. How far did you go? Special schools, how far? In these special schools, the idea of coming in with special schools. Time went by. Those same countries realized that we are not doing enough to help these children with the different disabilities. There's a gap somewhere. No wonder, after some time or after some ages, another system of making education to be accessible to these children was born. And this time around, that one is inclusive education or inclusive schools. Inclusive schools. Still, even though there was that system which was called special schools, it wasn't doing enough. Special schools was not doing enough. Some gaps were left without being filled. Until finally they decided to come up with inclusive schools. And which ones are these? So inclusive schools, when it was introduced in support or in conjunction with or to concur with the Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action. And again, there was also a sitting in 2006, and this one is known as a Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities of the United Nations. They observed, or the observation, or the demerits of following this approach of schooling. The Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action discourages the approach of schooling children in special schools. A meeting which was held at Salamanca. They saw special schools was not the appropriate solution to the problems which, or to the challenges which these children with special needs were encountering. But the recommendation was which was taken, was to go for inclusive education. And why? Why did they choose to go for inclusive education? Can you try to give an answer to that? Do you have something in mind?
To get more knowledge.
Huh?
To get more knowledge.
To get more knowledge. Who's supposed to get more knowledge? Who's supposed to get more knowledge?
Because once they just stay home, they will only have the idea of what happened in the community without knowing what happened in the person.
Now, the idea of inclusive schools came by because inclusion was regarded as important to human respect or dignity and the enjoyment of full human rights. That's why they came up with that inclusion schools. Inclusion is essential or important to human dignity and the enjoyment of full human rights. And above all, public education is designed to fit their unique and special needs. So education of children with special needs should be provided along with normal or able children. Inclusive education. Those children with disabilities are supposed to sit together or learn together with those people, children who are considered to be normal or able. Any question on that? So, no wonder. Universalization of elementary education is an educational term which refers to main education available to all children in the ages I've given you. And the idea of doing this was to fulfill the agreement which was made in 1948 according to Article 26, which talked about elementary education must be made compulsory to all. Despite the fact that special education was considered or thought to be the solution to solving such kind of students' problems, those children who had special needs of education, but that was not taken on board anymore, because again they felt there were some gaps which needed to be filled, and later on the gaps were filled when another system was brought, and this system was inclusive schools. And inclusive schools were supported or was considered to be fitting simply because there was a statement which was made at Salamanca which also supported that inclusion is the way to go. Now, let us identify the implications or suggestions for universalization of elementary education. I said earlier on that previously children with special needs were sent to special schools, but that idea was strongly discouraged by some professions have taught them. And that was the suggestion. And inclusion won the battle but was approved as a response to a wide range of diversity. We are talking of diversity. So which means diversity? What does the word diversity mean? Diversity. Different, right? Even in impairment is diversity. You have hearing impairment. Somebody can have, what kind of impairment? Visual. And the other one? Learning or math. Somebody can have all of them. So it's diversity. And again, within the community, you can have even some children who don't even have any impairment. So you are supposed to put all these children together. You should put all these children together. So universalization of elementary education approves all children to access, enroll, and acquire qualitative education between the ages of 6 to 14. I said, I was just making a summary of what we have just said. Now, the universalization of elementary education had some problems. In as much as it was important, but at the same time, on the other side, it had some problems. There are quite a number of problems in achieving universalization of elementary education. We heard about the importance of universalization of elementary education. Or elementary education, it made universal. It made with some challenges. The first one is universal access. Universal access. Yes, according to the law, according to the agreement which they made, all in practice are supposed to have an access, but not all can have such access. Another challenge which is there, I don't own that one, universal access. Have you heard clearly that on that one?
Yeah.
Universal enrollment of children with special needs. It's another problem, a challenge. Universal enrollment of children with special needs. Not all children who have impairments can be enrolled. There are some instances whereby such kind of children are just being put in homes, indoors, for various reasons and beliefs. Zimachitika kuti mwana aliduma alivina wache mauna atalizidwe amangosungirwa nyumba kumtsekera kumwanayo aina kuita kuti school is supposed to be enrolled and then retained kumwanayo angomwika nyumba ndezi chitima mva ena kuti mwana amangomusu akupita kumunda akumtsekera. That's a problem. There is also another problem, universal retention. Universal retention. To retain it means to keep. That's a problem. Another problem is qualitative education. How many are getting qualitative education amongst those children with special needs? How many? How many of them are getting qualitative education? Since right here I don't have any research, probably if you go home and then look or try to search, you may find that a lot of children with special needs are left behind. They don't get qualitative education, especially those who are in the remote areas. Some, they will tell you, you don't have a wheelchair. I depend on somebody to carry me on his or her back when going to school. And the moment that person doesn't want to or is sick, then I don't go to school. What if probably I were given a wheelchair? I would try on my own to push it to school. And then I get the kind of education I want. Some of them, they don't use braille or hearing devices. Perceiving education is very difficult. So this one again is a challenge, there is a problem.
Can you elaborate on universal retention?
Universal what?
Retention.
Retention. To retain, what does it mean? When you hear the word retention, what does it mean? When do you get? What do you get? One million follow that retention. Retention. Okay, listen carefully. To retain it means to keep. If you heard me right, when I was defining universalization of elementary education, I talked about enrolling or enrollment. You enroll, and then you're supposed to keep them. Don't leave them. So when we talk about universal retention, it simply means after joining school, the child should remain there till he completes or she completes the course. But how many are kept in school soon after the enrollment? They're kept. So failure to do this is a challenge. Yes, universalization of elementary education is calling each and every child to go to school. The moment they are being enrolled, how many are they going to finish? A few. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. I don't know if there's another question on the same. Any question on the same? No question. We should also look at another area. We should understand. Understanding and respecting diversity. Understanding and respecting diversity. If you can remember earlier on, I once said, I talked about children with special needs. Can be diversified. Can be diversified. They are different. They are different. Umali umakala osiana siana. Umali umakala osiana siana. Umakala osiana siana. Now we should understand that. And the moment we have understood that, then we should respect the diversity. We should respect the diversity. So first of all, let us look at the meaning of the word diversity. Diversity refers to the quality of being different. The quality of being different. That's diversity. Quality of being different. The quality of being different.
You say understanding what?
Understanding and respecting diversity. We should first of all understand what does the word diversity mean, and having known the meaning in line with children with disability or disabilities, and then we should respect diversity. But our major task is to understand diversity. And I've said earlier on that when we look at the word diversity, it simply means the quality of being different. That is to say, if you are looking at children with disabilities, yes, there is diversity amongst the children with disabilities. Because the disability, if the meaning is the quality of being different, it means children with disabilities, they are also different. And we need to respect. Secondly, respecting diversity. We should respect the diversity. So diversity refers to the quality of being different. It can also mean the act of acknowledging uniqueness of learners. We should know, in a classroom just like this one, there are learners, right? You are a learner. Probably if the whole class was filled, as a teacher, it was to be my duty to acknowledge uniqueness of each one of you. I was supposed to know each one of you, who you are and what you are. Who you are and what you are. That's uniqueness of learners. You are different. You could be different. John could not be the same as Albert. Rose couldn't be the same as Joyce or Mark. You are unique. You are unique. You are different. So each and every teacher or lecturer is supposed to know the uniqueness, to acknowledge the uniqueness of learners. So several international instruments have been put in place to focus on the rights of particular groups. these groups which are facing exclusion or discrimination, such as in education. So several international instruments have been put in place, and their focus or the idea or the aim of those institutions to be put in place is to do what? To focus on the rights of particular groups. And these groups, they are groups which are facing exclusion or discrimination in the society, such as in education, in a school just like this one, in a university just like this one. They are outside their international instruments. Maybe sometimes there will be local instruments whose main aim or idea is to focus on the rights of students. So each instrument incorporates statements about education. And inclusive education has been viewed to be the one responding to diversity. Inclusive education has been viewed or has emerged to be the one responding to diversity. Right, I've said in a classroom just like this one, it has been filled up with different students. And each student is unique, will not be the same as to the other. They are different. So, in this scenario, it means what kind of education is going to fit, is going to be fit to these children. It means the education which we are supposed to follow is inclusive education. If in this class we have children with different impairments, we are not required to separate them, but we are supposed to let them learn together with those students who may look normal. That's inclusive education, and it's the one which is being encouraged. It's the one which is being encouraged. Through that, we will respect those who are not okay, who are different from others. We will respect them. Because it's what diversity is all about, respecting the diversity. Respecting the diversity. So inclusive education focuses much on the inclusion of people with disabilities and in the concept of special educational needs. In the concept of special educational needs. And diversity, by the look of it, is broader. By the look of diversity, is broader. It's broader. Learners are different, and their needs too are also different. True or false? Learners are different, and their needs too are also different. And it is the responsibility of a teacher to know the approach of delivering his or her lesson in order to meet the desire of all learners. Because learners are different, and their needs are also different. So a teacher is supposed to be very clever when it comes to the process of delivering whatever he has to children. It's his responsibility to know the approach, methods. Which methods should I use? I have in a class probably someone who is blind, but at the same class or in the same class there's somebody who is not blind. How do I approach? How do I deliver my lesson? You have somebody with hearing impairment. He doesn't hear you whatever is being taught there he cannot grasp it. How am I going to deliver? Do you have any expertise in sign language? So this is all about diversity, which is being regarded as is broader. It's broader. That is to say, learners are different and their needs too are also different. And it's the responsibility of a teacher to know the approach of delivering his or her lesson in order to meet the desire of all learners. No need to leave any student behind. Take them on board. They should be moving together. Now the question could be, how can we respect the diversity? How can diversity be respected? How can diversity be respected?
I think by knowing each learner's
Character. And how can you know the character of somebody? Through what means? Observation. Samnamizi. Character. Character kinaweza kuonesa ni ina. Pamene yeye alichina. Ena kuzokone kwa ufati. Umesali ufati. Ena kuzokone kwa salamu alimbi. Muzito mwina. Kusalamu lako mwina kwa kuna wino kabina mwina kwa dua. You can't. Okay, so how to respect the diversity? One of them, to add on to what you have said, identify learners' impairment. You need to identify their impairment, learners' impairment. Generally, we have put them into 4 categories: hearing, vision, and learning mathematics. Now, you need to identify this. If you have identified each case in the class, the approach should be you choose an approach which you address to his problem. If you have somebody with hearing impairment, how are you going to use a method which will fit him or her in the process of learning? What are you going to apply? What should be the approach like to somebody who has hearing impairment? Or sound? Who would approach you? If you don't know sign language, your teacher who doesn't know sign language. Make sure, like, was it yesterday?
Light,
Not
so
light,
that
exactly.
they don't want to see.
And again, your lips should be led by that particular person. Because being in front of the class, watching you, leading your lips, so you should be in a place where that particular student will be able to look at you and lead your lips. What are they talking about? So the first one, how to respect the diversity, is through identification of learners' impairment. The second one should be identify learners' unique needs. Each and every learner, we say they are different, and again their needs too are also different. They are different, which means if they are different, definitely their needs will also be different. Then provide to each learner whatever he or she needs or he needs. Each learner has his own needs because they are different. Provide to them whatever they need, which means you are respecting the diversity. We are respecting the diversity. Someone who is blind, can you give him a book? You're not respecting him. And the opposite, or etc., etc. So you need to identify learners' unique needs. Another respect could be provide unique resources and facilities. Provide unique resources or facilities. For instance, a student who is moving on a wheelchair, a class is situated in upstairs. How are you going to respect this child?
I think when developing in healthcare, they usually ask for maybe just carrying the child.
Yeah, fine. Make the wheelchair accessible to that room. Other people will be able to move through or via the steps. Let them use steps. But for those who cannot use the steps, put a passage where a wheelchair can go through. Provide hearing devices to those people with hearing problems. Or encourage them to go and get one. So by doing that, you are respecting the diversity. Apart from that one, again, respect on diversity can also be given through modification of the curriculum, modifying the curriculum. The curriculum should fit or should be accessible to all students. You need to incorporate different things in that particular curriculum in order to fit all. Again, to respect the diversity, you are also supposed to use different methods in teaching. Different methods in teaching. There are so many different methods in teaching, methods or methodology of teaching. So all these, the moment they're being followed, it means you are respecting the diversity. We are also supposed to know the policy schemes and the legislations about the education of children with special education needs in Malawi. There are some policies. I said what are policies last time. Policies, these are plans set aside by the government to respect its citizens. And these policies, they seem to look like the guides They're guiding people on how to doing things in a country, to doing things in an institution, to doing things in an organization. So there are some policies or policy schemes and legislations about the education of children with special needs in Malawi. They're saying, firstly, there was a global campaign to ensure that the education for all goals are achieved. There was that campaign, especially in 1999. It was formed. This campaign was formed in 1999. And this campaign was done globally. So the global campaign to ensure that the education for all goals are achieved. Again, the United Nations and some of its agencies, such as UNESCO, were major players in the influencing policy and practice development in education. So United Nations and some other agencies which belonged to United Nations, like UNESCO, were major players in influencing policy and practice development in education. And these have indicated a strong and collective international commitment that stimulates individuals or individual countries worldwide to do what? To improve education. They have done a lot, like UNESCO has done a lot. UNESCO, that's an abbreviation, that's United Nations Education, Science, what? The CO, what does UNESCO? United Nations Education. You're supposed to go and check. I used to follow in this previous UNESCO. But the OIS organization. So all these, they have indicated strong and collective international commitment that stimulates individual countries worldwide to improve education, especially for the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children. Our constitution, section 112, subsection 2, the state is bound by international agreements entered into before the commencement of constitutional and after. That's the constitution of our country. Section 112, subsection 2. The state is bound by international agreements, which means the government of Malawi agreed with other states to protect education. So these international agreements or covenants form part of the laws of the public. And again, by acts of parliament. Parliaments, unless otherwise. So in line with this provision, Malawi is a signatory to a number of international instruments which it has signed and ratified. Malawi is a signatory. It has signed and voted now. Kuti zomwe mwakambirana uwowo inenso ngati member wa United Nations, I will follow suit. I will respect, I will do likewise. I don't know if there is any question on that one. Is there any question? You're saying?
No.
Yeah?
No.
No, you don't have any question.
Ndisiyakumva.
You're saying?
Ndisiyakumva.
Was your woman? You are tired? Why? Okay, so in our next class, okay, some of the things we should want to know in our next class will be nature, types, and characteristics of children with special needs. Nature, types, characteristics of children with special needs. And the first one, we'll look at the psychosocial and educational characteristics. So that one will be our first assignment next week. Thank you for listening. I don't know, maybe though you are tired, but I wasn't tired.
I'm here.
Why? It's too early for you to become tired.
It's a bit late, so I was writing an assignment.